the president was always very cordial with our friends and allies, and we understand that, like Winston Churchill said, it can be frustrating being with our allies. Churchill said the only thing harder than fighting a war with allies is fighting a war without allies. And America understands we need allies, and President Trump understood that. He had a great relationship with South Korea. Very impressed by South Korean golfers, and especially the female golfers in South Korea. So he used to talk about that. So I think the alliance with South Korea will be strong. I think the alliance with our European partners will be strong, and with our Asian partners will be strong, with Japan and Australia. So I think a return of President Trump is a safer world, a stronger America, and a very strong alliance. I think he's a big fan of South Korea, and look, South Korea is one of the great success stories of my lifetime. I mean, going from an authoritarian country to a democracy, going from a relatively poor country to one of the richest countries in the world. So South Korea is a great success story. President Trump loves success, as you know, and so I think we have a great relationship with South Korea in a Trump administration. Well, first of all, I want to compliment the Biden administration on hosting the Camp David Summit. I think it was very important. But I also want to emphasize that the seeds of that summit were planted under the Trump administration. And so I would expect that in a future Trump administration, we'd continue to see those summits. I mean, think of how powerful that alliance is. I mean, South Korea, Japan, America. I mean, that's an incredible counterweight to China, potentially the most important counterweight in the world to China and to its malign activities, threatening Taiwan and threatening India and trying to take over the South China Sea, the Yellow Sea. So that's an incredibly powerful alliance of Korea, Japan, and America. And so that's something we need to work on, and I think it would continue under President Trump for sure. Camp David is a great place to go for a summit, so maybe we'll do it again at Camp David. But,
okay. So another Camp David with the president.
Maybe, or Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago is pretty nice as well, down in Palm Beach. So we'll see, but I'm sure that relationship will continue to be very strong under President Trump. So you have the Quad with Japan, India, U.S., and Australia. You have AUKUS with Australia, the UK, US. You've got the trilateral agreements with Japan, South Korea, and America. So I think we're seeing an understanding by our Asian allies and our Indo-Pacific allies that it's important for the free world, the capitalist countries, the countries that believe in free men and free women and free markets, to stand together. And so could we see a merging of the GSOMIA agreements and the more extensive Japan, Korea, America agreements together with the Quad, together with AUKUS? I think that would be great. So I think getting South Korea involved in the Quad, I think getting South Korea involved in potentially in AUKUS, and certainly continuing the relationship with Japan. And look, I think that makes all the sense in the world. But we've got to denuclearize North Korea. I mean, that has to happen. Otherwise, people in South Korea eventually are going to say, we want our own nuclear weapons. I mean, and we have to keep these bad actors like the Ayatollahs and Kim Jong-un from having access to nuclear weapons to threaten our friends and neighbors. That's what you want. You want leaders to be cordial and to talk to each other and to have good relationships, even though we don't agree on issues. Because you need to be able to keep the lines of communication open. You have to be able to talk and have conversations with your adversaries. But President Trump is the one who walked out on the summit in Hanoi. Keep that in mind. We never made any concessions. We put maximum pressure on Kim Jong-un. We sent naval ships to the region to deter him. We did have summits and we talked to him and we got a commitment from him to denuclearize. He didn't live up to that commitment. Well, look, I think we all know we have a massive challenge with China. And so I think you're going to see more troops in the Indo-Pacific, not less troops. In fact, we want to take troops out of Germany and take them to Guam and to Palau and other places in the Indo-Pacific, Hawaii, Alaska. So I think that the challenge for all of us, for South Korea, for America, for Japan, for Taiwan, for all of our partners, Australia, all of our partners, Thailand, the Philippines, all of our partners in the region, is dealing with this aggressive China. But I think one thing South Korea has to understand is that South Korea is a highly capable country, and the military has gotten really strong in South Korea. From the equipment, the military and the naval service, the South Korean submarines and the South Korean warships are as good as any in the world. In fact, I've advocated that we do joint ventures with South Korean shipyards to increase the size of the U.S. Navy and working with American shipyards, so to take advantage of the expertise that South Korea has in shipbuilding. So I think there's a lot more South Korea can do for the alliance, and maybe doesn't need to rely so much on U.S. troops, maybe U.S. aircraft, U.S. naval ships, and those troops can be spread out in a way that further deters China. But so far we've seen very little effort on this administration to be tough on our adversaries. As we're lenient with these countries, as we turn a blind eye to sanctions relief, we turn a blind eye to human rights violations, these countries only get more authoritarian and more belligerent, and so we need to really go back to a peace through strength posture. That's what will lead to a nuclear freeze and a curtailment of the ballistic missile program. I think you see in the Middle East specifically appeasement. And so the idea is if we open our hand, if we reach out our hand to the Iranians, if we give them money, if we give them for hostages, if we pay ransom for hostages, if we have sanctions relief and let them... So we've seen that the weakness shown towards Iran, the effort to appease Iran, to buy their friendship, has resulted in just the opposite. They've viewed us as being weak, and so they've attacked us more. So we need to go back to a peace through strength posture. Well, the biggest concern we face as a country, the existential threat that we face, but it's also a threat that's faced by South Korea, is the Communist Party of China. All the ASEAN countries need to be very concerned about China and its attempts to dictate how we're going to live our lives, take away our liberties and our freedoms. But long term, the big threat to our liberty and our way of life for our kids, our grandkids, comes from the Communist Party of China, because its view of the world is so different than our view of the world in the free countries. And so we need to be vigilant, we need to be strong, and our goal should be to deter war with China through strength, not by appeasing China, because appeasement will only lead to more offensive and provocative action by China. And China is so big, and the challenge presented by China, Russia, Iran working together is so big that America can't do it any longer on our own. We have to have partners and allies that work with us. But part of that is our allies making themselves friendly for the investment and to be part of the supply chain. So I think we need to make sure that we don't overregulate the companies that give us a strategic advantage against China. We fought side by side. Our grandfathers fought together. We prevailed. We've stood strong as allies. We've stood up to the Russians and the Soviet Union. We've stood up to China and the Communist Party of China. South Korea and America have always been walked side by side. We've got a great economic cooperation. We've got a great economic integration between our countries. So we have a tremendous opportunity to have a bright future, and a bright future for the free world. My message to the Korean people is that the friendship among our people is strong. The American people love the Korean people. We've got a long history together, and I think that will continue.